Welcome to the School of Social Work's workshop on plagiarism. This presentation will teach you how to recognize plagiarism and, more importantly, steps to take to ensure that you avoid it in your writing. That said, please note that much of this presentation is based on previously published material and should not be considered the original thoughts or ideas of the presenter. So how do we define plagiarism? According to the UNC Honor Code, plagiarism is the deliberate or reckless representation of another's words, thoughts, or ideas as one's own, without attribution in connection with submission of academic work, whether graded or otherwise. More simply, it's taking credit for something you didn't do. You should be aware that the School of Social Work does subscribe to the Turnitin software, although how much it's used varies by professor. On a side note, please remember that American universities require citations more often than many international universities, so if it isn't yours, cite it. For those who may be thinking, just this one time, I'll never get caught, think again. This slide includes just a few examples of students and professors who were caught taking credit for work they didn't originally produce. On June 25, 2008, Madonna Constantine, a professor at Columbia's University Teachers College, was fired following an 18-month investigation into allegations of plagiarism. The investigation concluded that, on several occasions, the professor published academic work without crediting others for the content. In February 2008, researchers at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center discovered that more than 70,000 article abstracts on Medline were disturbingly similar to other published work. A closer examination of 2,600 of these abstracts found 73 instances of what appeared to be outright plagiarism. In April 2006, Ohio University revoked the master's degree of a former mechanical engineering student accused of plagiarizing his thesis. The investigation, however, later revealed a 20-year history of plagiarism within the engineering college alone. These are just 3 examples of plagiarism. The fact is, it happens more often than you probably realize. Every year, universities across the country expel students for plagiarizing. Perhaps more surprising, professors and other faculty members have drawn greater scrutiny in recent years as well. So to better understand plagiarism, you must first understand what copyright law protects. According to the website plagiarism.org, anytime you borrow from an original source and do not give proper credit, you have committed plagiarism and violated U.S. copyright laws. Notice this says expression of ideas, meaning it can't just be an idea floating around in your head that you haven't shared in some way. So, what are the penalties for failing to cite properly? They include course failure, expulsion and, depending on the circumstance, firings, potential fines, and jail time. Distinguishing between what is common knowledge and what isn't is a good first step to determining if the information or ideas you want to use are protected. There are 2 questions to ask to get you started. Did I know this information before I took this course? And did this information or idea come from my own brain? If you answer no to either or both of these questions, then the information is not common knowledge to you. In these cases, you must cite your source or sources. So let's take a closer look at what is federally protected. Again, citing plagiarism.org, copyright laws exist to protect our intellectual property. They make it illegal to reproduce someone else's expression of ideas or information without permission. That means you must document or cite ideas, content, or other productions that you did not create. This can include music or other audio recordings, words or ideas in newspapers, magazines, books, letters, or advertisements, images, including graphics, illustrations, diagrams, and charts, videos, movies, and TV programs, photographs, as well as a variety of other media, including web pages and computer programs. Furthermore, according to the U.S. Copyright Office, work is under copyright protection the moment it is created and fixed in a tangible form that is perceptible either directly or with the aid of a machine or device. It is just as important to understand what doesn't need documentation, meaning that you don't have to cite or give credit to another source. This can include your own experiences, whether it's your time performing volunteer work or something more recreational such as rock climbing, your own personal thoughts, observations, insights, and conclusions. Remember, however, that it's still a good idea to express these in some way. Your personal artwork, photographs, video, and audio, and information that is common knowledge and generally accepted as fact, such as Washington was our first president and the earth is round. It is also important to note that patents, not copyright laws, are available to protect ideas, procedures, methods, systems, processes, concepts, principles, discoveries, or devices. Also in the unprotected category are historical events, folklore, and mythology. But remember that historical documents must still be cited. As always, any facts that result from your own original research are simply stated and do not require citation. Now let's take a closer look at plagiarism. Often, students focus so much on how to cite that they forget about what must be credited. This can lead to a variety of plagiarism mishaps that you will see described in the next couple of slides. Of course, the most obvious plagiarist is someone who offers up absolutely no original work at all. We call this the ghostwriter. This is a writer who turns in another's work, word for word, as his or her own. Then, there is the photocopy. This describes the writer who copies significant portions of text straight from a single source without alteration. The potluck paper describes a writer who attempts to disguise plagiarism by copying from several different sources, tweaking sentences to make them fit together, while still retaining most of the original phrasing. Next, we have the poor disguise. Although this writer has retained the essential content of the source, he or she has altered the paper's appearance only slightly by changing keywords and phrases. Then, there is the labor of laziness. This writer takes the time to paraphrase most of the paper from other sources and makes it all fit together instead of spending the same effort on original work. Don't forget that your work must have a good balance. And finally, we have the self-stealer. This writer borrows generously from his or her previous work without citing the original work, violating policies adopted by most academic institutions. Articles are often referred to as multiple publications. Sometimes, sources are cited, but incorrectly or haphazardly, as you will see in the following examples. First, there is the forgotten footnote. This writer mentions an author's name for a source, but neglects to include specific information on the location of the material referenced. This often masks other forms of plagiarism by obscuring source locations. The misinformer. This writer provides inaccurate information regarding sources, making it impossible to find them. The too perfect paraphrase describes a writer who properly cites a source, but neglects to put text in quotation marks that has been copied word for word or close to it. Although attributing the basic ideas to the source, the writer is falsely claiming original wording and interpretation of the information. The resourceful citer. The writer properly cites all sources, paraphrasing and using quotations appropriately. So, what's the problem? The paper contains almost no original work and resembles a book report instead. It's sometimes difficult to spot this form of plagiarism because it looks like any other well-researched document. Finally, we have the perfect crime, although I think most would agree that it really doesn't exist. In this example, the writer properly quotes and cites sources in some places, but then paraphrases other arguments from those sources without citation. So the writer attempts to pass off paraphrased material as his or her own analysis of the cited material. In Part 2 of this presentation, you will learn more about steps to take to avoid plagiarism. Thanks for your attention. If you want to learn more about recognizing and avoiding plagiarism, you can find additional information at the websites listed here.